Hey everybody, it's Chris Sims here from ComicsAlliance.com, and this is Here's the Thing. And this week, we're going to talk about Superman's hair. Bear with me, it'll all make sense in a little bit. Now, I'm not talking about Superman's hair in the comics, like the stuff that grows out of Clark Kent's head, and whether you can cut it with scissors or if you need like a, I don't know, kryptonite clippers to get through it or whatever. That's fun stuff to talk about, but that's not the reason we're here today. Now, you may remember when this movie called Man of Steel came out, and I reviewed it, and I reviewed it very negatively. I believe my headline was, "The S stands for sucks," and I'll stand by that. That movie's garbage. But someone accused me of making up my mind about that movie before I even went to see it. And that's true. I did. Because, see, movies have these things called advertising budgets that are designed to give you an idea of what happens in that movie before it even comes out. And I made up my mind when I saw that stuff. I went in hoping I was going to be wrong, but let's face it, I'm never wrong. Well, there was one time. And this should have taught me not to judge movies before they come out, because when I saw the first images of Heath Ledger as the Joker from The Dark Knight, I was like, oh, that looks awful. This movie's going to be terrible. And I was wrong. That movie's pretty good. I like it a lot. But with Superman, I felt much more comfortable. And I can tell you the exact moment that I did make up my mind about Man of Steel. It was when I saw that first picture of Henry Cavill in the costume, and I noticed his hair was wrong, and his cape was too long. And that was it. That's when I knew. It turned out I was right. And it all came down to that hair, which is very, very important. Believe it or not, it's actually one of the most important things about Superman's costume, to me. Because, let's see here. Do I have a good picture of classic Superman? Oh, here we go. Superman. This is what Superman looks like, right? What's up, bro? You can see his hair in this, and that's pretty much what I think Superman should look like. And there's a reason for that. It's not all nostalgia. And I'll admit, it's a little bit nostalgia. Because, you know, I did, after all, grow up with this guy, like a lot of us did. But the important thing here is that curl, right there on top of his head. Now, if you look at it, it's not just a curl. It's an S. It stands for Superman. It's just like the one on his chest. It means Superman. It goes with the little M's on his boots. Superman. Head, toes. It's that simple. But it's a really cool little bit of visual iconography. And that's what superheroes are built on. Now, Superman has one of the best costumes in comic book history. Because it's the costume, right? It's the one that all other superhero costumes are, at the very least, reacting to. I think it's funny in the Marvel Universe when people use capes as a slang for superhero, because who are they talking about? None of the characters in the Marvel Universe wear capes except for Thor and Doctor Strange. Are Thor and Doctor Strange really that popular that people are calling all superheroes capes? Like Captain America, Iron Man, the Hulk, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four? They should call them tights, right? Because they don't wear capes. This dude wears a cape. That's where it comes from. That's why that's slang even across multiple universes. Because it's slang in comics. Because that costume is so important to comics. It's the first superhero costume. And that curl is part of that costume. Now, the reason it's there is really interesting to me. It's not just there for the obvious reason, which is that Superman's hair is kind of blown back. I always think it's fun when you see Clark Kent and he's got that very straight-laced, very rigidly combed news reporter hair. Because Clark Kent's a square. You know, he doesn't always have to be a nerd, but he's, he's one of those. Meanwhile, Superman, wherever he is, he just flew there. Unless you read one of the worst Superman stories ever, where Superman walks everywhere, Superman just flew there. So his hair is not going to be combed. Now, here's an interesting side note. When they did that Lois and Clark TV show, the one with Terry Hatcher and Dean Cain, they flipped that around. Superman always had his hair super slicked back, and when Dean Cain was playing Clark Kent, it was always kind of, fluffy and not soaked in water and hair gel. And I really like that idea because, well, A, because it still preserves there being a visual contrast between Superman and Clark Kent. But it also implies that whenever Clark Kent, rips open the shirt, tears it off, becomes Superman, that he then goes into the bathroom with a comb and gets it wet and slicks it back and puts a little product in his hair before he goes off to fight Luthor or Brainiac or whatever. I think that's funny. But as long as there's a difference there, that's really what's key. Now, the S, the curl, the kind of signature curl of Superman, that is important for an entirely different reason. I mentioned iconography earlier, and the reason it works is because when you see this, you know who you're looking at, right? Mainly because you got that thing right there. You've got that logo, one of the most recognizable symbols in the world. But what if you're doing a close-up? What if you're doing a close-up of Superman? Then you still have this. You still know who you're looking at. There's still a visual signifier of what you're looking at. And the reason that's so important is because that implies that there was a lot of thought going into Superman and how he was designed. It's not just about looking cool. It's not just about evoking that strongman aesthetic. It's about how can we make this character look good on the page and make him look right. Whether it's a long shot and you can get the cape from the back. That's why there's a logo on the back of his cape sometimes. It's about, you know, getting close-ups and making sure they look right. It's about making him look uniform and making him look iconic no matter what angle you look at it from. Batman's the same way. A lot of people want Batman to just dress in black and gray. And that's been kind of the prevailing aesthetic on Batman since at least 2000, when they did the kind of, you know, no oval costume after No Man's Land. But even before that, it was, what, 95? When they did the all-black costume that had the oval. And I don't really like that. I like the classic Batman suit. I like the blue and gray suit with the oval around the bat. Not just because I like the way it looks, although I do like the way it looks, and not just because I grew up with it, and I did grow up with it, that's always going to be my Batman, but because it looks good on the page. When Batman's black and gray, and no bright colors at all, then he kind of just blends into whatever. Now that's great if you're trying to justify Batman as this stealth science detective ninja, which is what he is. But as a comic book character, as a superhero, if you don't have those colors, you don't make him pop. And that's really important, because you're looking at him in a visual medium. Batman should never be the least interesting thing on the page. When Batman fights the Joker, you know, you've got the Joker. He's visually dynamic. He's really interesting. Purple suit, green hair, white skin, big smile. All that stuff catches your eye. Now, what if he's just standing there with Batman in black and gray? Black cape, black logo, gray tights. Yellow belt. He still has a yellow belt. That's important. So that's at least nice. Now, obviously there's going to be a contrast there, a visual contrast, because you've got the character in dark colors next to the character in bright colors. But what if you had the character in a brighter blue and gray? What if you had that logo visible and you gave it a yellow background so that it popped off his chest more? It's not about giving people a target. That's just a in-continuity justification. Just the same way as eyes. They're not about, you know, giving him night vision lenses. That's just the in-story justification for it. It's about making him look cool. It's about thinking about how to best get this character and the visual iconography of this character across to the reader. Superman's hair is the same way. And that's why whenever I look at Superman, whenever I look at a drawing of Superman, if I don't see that, then I get really suspicious. I get really suspect about whether the person drawing it, whether the person creating this Superman media really gets Superman. Because if you take away something that is a visual signifier of a character's identity, then that makes me wonder how much you're thinking about Superman and how he works. How much you're thinking about, what if we do a close-up? You know, how can we make this character visually distinctive? Why is this there? Why is Superman's cape the length it is? Why is Superman's hair styled the way it is? I think about that stuff a lot, but, you know, you can tell this room's full of comics. I do nothing but think about why Superman's hair is styled that way. But, you know, shouldn't the people who make those comics think about that stuff too? That doesn't automatically mean it's bad. My friend Chad Bowers, who co-wrote Downset Fight with me, it's available now. He refers to, he hates it when Superman doesn't have the curl way less than when it's backwards. Because as you can see, it makes an S. But if you mirror that, then it's a 2. And Chad hates it. He calls that guy Two-Man. He refuses to acknowledge that any Superman where the hair is backwards is the real Superman. He just calls him Two-Man and assumes those stories are about a different guy. I don't know how strict he is about that, but I get it. And those are warning signs. Those are warning signs for me as someone who kind of obsesses over all these characters on a day-to-day basis. And your favorite characters probably have them too. If you look at those characters and you look at how they're built, you can see intent behind things. And when you start stripping away those things, you start stripping away the intent behind them. So maybe your characters, maybe they have something that's been taken away, and you don't like it. So if they do, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter, @the_ISB, or leave a comment at ComicsAlliance.com. And we'll be back next week to talk about, I don't know, somebody else's hair. Maybe Green Lanterns. You guys want to hear about that, right? There's a reason he had gray hair for a while. We'll talk about that. Have a great week, everybody.